Morning, y'all. Welcome back to Pure South Pastures. Having to talk over the cattle this morning, and I'm having a walk down here to put the fence in for today's move because we got about 3 inches of rain in a couple of days, and it's just nasty. So I don't want to bring the four-wheeler down here. I'm going to be putting this line in, and I'll bring you along. We'll move them here in just a minute. I've hooked on to the fence on this side. It's soupy. All right, y'all. We're about to move these cows. I put in the line by hand today, so hopefully we get them in this thicker mat of grass. It's going to be better. The reason I want to do this video today is because if you're in the South and you've heard about stockpile grazing, but you struggle to figure out if you can do it with predominantly Bermuda, Bahia, with very little fescue, like a lot of people up north or in the fescue belt are able to do, then I just want to encourage you that you can do it. This field is predominantly almost I would say 90%, if not more, warm season grasses. There's some fescue coming in, and we just grazed a little piece with a little fescue in it. There's a little bit more over here, but predominantly this is it's forbs and warm season grasses. So this has been sitting since May or June. We haven't been on it at all. So I mean, it's woolly. It's kind of, it's not a pretty golf course looking, but this is our winter feed. And it's working pretty good. Because we're in the South, because this forage loses its protein or its nutrients, it drops out pretty quick after a frost. You do have to supplement with some protein, and so we're feeding some soybean meal. So having said that, what I'm saying is, if you hear like a Greg Judy say, oh, we don't have to feed protein, it's because he's on predominantly fescue, and that fescue stays green. It keeps its protein content up throughout the winter. So yes, you can graze this kind of grass in the South, but you have to add some protein or you will starve your cows. They got to have the protein to be able to process the food, the forage that they're taking in. So anyway, let's move them real quick. We'll move in this paddock and we'll keep talking about it. Here they come. Seems pretty narrow right here, but it widens out. I gave them this piece yesterday, so we'll pull that wire down in just a minute. All right, so you can see we moved the cows in here. There was a line that ran right down here, and then it made a L right there and went to the fence. This is an area I gave them yesterday right here. You can see how low that is and how high it is over here. So yeah, a lot of weeds in here, but there's a lot of forage too. And this stuff is it's rank, but you can hear, they were discontent when I came out because they were ready to be moved, bawling, and now they just shut up and they're just going after it. So the reason feeding stockpile forage is such a big deal for us is essentially it's the bottom line. If you're gonna raise livestock and do more than just have a hobby or something you dump money into, but actually run it as a business that pays you back for all of your labor and effort, you have to figure out ways that you're going to cut costs, cut your expenses, cut the fat. And so one of the ways that we've realized now that we can do, and I wondered if we could, I really had a lot of apprehension about doing this. One of the ways that we realized that we could cut a lot of our expense, or our major expense, is through stockpiling forage and not feeding hay, or essentially we're feeding standing hay. As you can see behind me, they're eating what's been there since May and June. So so far it's working well. Now here are the concerns or the things you need to be thinking about if you want to do this. First, obviously it takes planning. In order to have this area stockpiled, we had to be grazing something else or have a plan so that we could leave it alone. So a lot of people get concerned. Their stocking rate prevents them from being able to save an area, during the season. And so you have to, in order to do this, you have to do some sort of managed grazing. In other words, you have a way to keep them off of a certain area. So we move every day. This last year, we've adopted a lot of the practices from Jim Elizondo, total grazing program, and it seems to be working for us. So we have this area stockpiled and another large area that we haven't even gotten to yet that's got lots of biomass on it, lots of forage on it. And we've done that because we tightened up our grazing area. We went against what a lot of people say, and I know there's a lot of controversy about it and people arguing about it. I'm not here to argue about it. I'm just trying to see what works in our context. And what has seemed to work in our context is tightening them up, giving them a very small area, putting a lot of density on a small area, and then moving across the farm very slowly in small increments. So moving them, 1 or 2 times a day. If I'm at home, moving them 3 and 4 times a day. You can even move them up to 8 times a day. I mean, Ben Caton at one time did an experiment with Grazing 365. That's his channel, but he did an experiment where he moved them 30 times a day, just trying it out and seeing what happened. But anyway, that's what seemed to work for us, to be able to slow our grazing down enough, take it down in a way that's healthy, but also allow us to stockpile a large portion of our farm for the year. And so that's how we have this stockpile here. So we haven't been here since May or June. I can't remember exactly the date, and it's been growing ever since then. Another concern you have is, especially if you are on leased land, you can tell behind me, it looks woolly. It's kind of it's not a beautiful, pristine golf course looking pasture, which to me, you kind of have to change the way you see things. And now I see this as beautiful because I can see the savings that it is for us. And it's very healthy for the soil, for this to grow, for this season to grow and just have this long period of rest. Now, it's important to understand that if you're adopting the practices of the total grazing program, then you're going to flip-flop your stockpiled area every year. So this area that we stockpiled this year will flip, and we'll be grazing this summer, and we'll be stockpiling the area that we grazed last summer. So that gives you a whole season where the roots of those plants have rested, they've replenished, and it's very beneficial for the soil and for the plants. And so yeah, you got to plan. You got to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to be concerned that it's not beautiful and pristine. And if you have a landowner that demands that, and you may not be able to do it. I think what is interesting is, as woolly as this looked, as you can see behind me, as they go across it this winter, they're taking it down and it doesn't look near as woolly anymore. And so, that's just kind of a thought, something to think about. Maybe you can talk with your landowner and just help them understand the benefits of this. It's not only benefits to your bottom line, it's benefit to the soil too. And so we're in the process of proving that, and I'm documenting it as we go. Another concern that you may have is you need to know how you need to have a plan for how you're going to source protein. So some people have alfalfa hay readily available, high quality alfalfa hay, and the protein value on that is really high. You can feed cottonseed meal, you can feed soybean meal. We've chosen soybean meal because it's what we have access to at a cost-effective rate. So honestly, it's pushing some of the principles that we at first adhered to, as far as we were saying we're not going to feed any grain, and I've talked about that a little bit. And so, but we had to make a decision to say we're going to feed them a little grain in the winter in order to give them the protein that they need to be able to digest the forage that we're saving for them. So that was just a decision we had to make. You may want to go with hay so that you keep them completely on grass. Still in the summertime, all they get is, here is grass and grass alone. So just something to think about. And that's a decision you're gonna have to make in your context for your values and your principles. Another consideration that you have to take into account is the size of your animals. If you have really large cattle, if your livestock are really big, you may not be able they may not be able to do well on stockpile forage through the winter. They have to be efficient. And so one of the ways that you can increase efficiency is to work on getting the size of your animals down. And that might be in your plan or in your values or principles. It might not be. So this might or might not be for you. But if you have smaller animals, which allows them to be more efficient, which means what I'm saying by being more efficient, they can take in lower quality forage and still stay fat on that. Part of that's genetic as well. And so if you have genetics that will allow you to do that, then I would encourage it. But also understand, I think anyone who's doing this is constantly pushing toward better genetics for this. So you're always going to have some animals that are, they're just not going to make it. They're not going to perform well. They can't handle this type system. And so you're going to have to work through those and weed them out as you go. So, but you do need to consider animal size, their ability to make it on forage alone, especially in the wintertime, with just very little supplement. Along with that would be the idea that you have to be willing to allow your animals to lose a little bit of condition in the wintertime. I love Addison Ranch. It's a YouTube channel. Brett Addison does a phenomenal job explaining how these animals were created to back up a little bit in the wintertime, to lose a little bit of condition in the winter. And actually, he says there have been studies that have shown that it makes them more productive. Animals that do lose a little bit and pick back up, lose a little bit and pick back up in the spring, that they're actually more productive than an animal that stays extremely fat all year round. And we all know that if a cow is overly fat, she will not reproduce. So that's another consideration, though. Are you willing to let your animals go backwards just a little bit? You have to. If you're going to do this, they're going to lose a little bit of condition. I'm not saying starve them to death. That's not going to, it's not going to profit anybody. But you do have to be willing to let them go backwards a little bit. So let's just take a look at what we have here. Like I said, you can see they've taken this down. Comparatively, they've taken that down compared to that. So this is still pretty soupy right in here. Pretty wet. But the cattle are looking good. This bottom collects a lot of water. You should see what she's eating there. It's just standing Bermuda. Dog fennel there standing next to that cow. We have quite a bit of dog fennel here. But I hate seeing it, honestly, but it's just part of allowing this to stockpile. I mean, this stuff is thick. It's 18 inches tall in a lot of places. So here's a manure pat. They don't all look this good, but that just shows you, with a little bit of protein and grazing, what these animals are grazing right here, they're doing pretty good. There's not any extreme stacking as far as manure is concerned, which is one of the kind of the meters, the gauges for how they're doing, how they're handling it. You can look at their rumen feel, their gut feel, but an animal can, even on hay, if it's poor quality, no protein, they can be full but starving to death, if that makes sense. What do you say, girl? So I just wanted to affirm you today, if you're in the South and you've considered stockpiling forage for the winter instead of purchasing hay or baling hay yourself, I want to encourage you to give it a try. Maybe one winter, take a small section and do it for a while if you don't want to take the full leap. Everybody's context is different, so I can't fully say how it's going to work out for you. But I just want to encourage you that it is one way that you can cut your cost, save expenses, and make it through the winter, hopefully being a little bit profitable. And that always helps. I'm so glad you joined me today. As always, if you would help me out by hitting the subscribe button if you haven't already. Doesn't cost you anything to do it. Just click on that. If you would like it, if you comment, if you have questions, comments, thoughts, tell me what I'm doing wrong, whatever you want to do. Would love to have your interaction. That helps us as well. So I'm thankful for you watching. I hope you have a great day. God bless you. We'll see you on the next one.